Hello, everyone. Oh, hello, everyone.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to our second summer development camp session.
Yay.
Yay.
Today we're going to be discussing developing the maker mindset.
Yeah, and icebreakers.
Icebreakers.
Ways to get started, ways to get groups together, ways to set the tone for whatever you're doing, whether it's small groups, long-term engagement, all sorts of things.
All right, let's introduce ourselves.
I'm Jeremy Mitchell, the VISTA leader for MakerEd and MakerEd's only Maker Corps member.
Only and very special.
That's right. I'm Steve Davin, Director of Education and Communications.
Hi everyone, I'm Stephanie Chang. I am MakerEd's Director of Youth Engagement. Happy to be here today.
Yay, thanks. And I'm Nancy Rings, the Program Coordinator here. So I've got a couple announcements to make before our guests introduce themselves. First announcement is timesheets. Everyone, our evaluators will be soliciting timesheets after July 4th. It's probably going to come through my email or Steve's. They're going to be sending out a link, and you just have to upload the timesheet that you've already been filling out. If you have any questions about that, send me an email. It's been posted on the community, and also we sent out your timesheets to all your supervisors. Second announcement is, as always, we are monitoring Q&A for questions and comments, as well as YouTube. And I think Steve's got a really exciting announcement to make.
Well, most of you saw on our Twitter feed or our Google channel that last week several representatives of MakerEd, including Jeremy, and then Rachel, our Director of Strategic Alliances, and our Interim Executive Director, Lisa Regala, we went to the White House. President Obama declared it a National Day of Making, which is pretty darn cool. So we were there to see a maker fair that the president hosted. It was pretty hilarious because in his opening remarks he went off script and started making fun of maker fair with an E on the end a little bit, which is kind of hilarious. So why is there an E at the end? This is America. What are we doing, jousting? So he was kind of making fun of that. He's like, I'm just warning you, next year it might not be there. He had just come from the White House Maker Fair, the Science Fair, which is more traditionally spelled F-A-I-R. Is that how you spell fair? Without an E on the end?
I'm getting really confused.
More traditionally spelled.
I think there's a couple E's in there.
That's right. Yeah, no E's on the end of that. So this is a big deal for all of you because the maker movement in general and the maker mindset that we're talking about today, or maker mindsets plural, are becoming increasingly huge. It's one of those things approaching, quite frankly, kind of a hype status. So you can be out there actually showing people what it is and what it's all about. It's never been a more exciting time for the maker movement in terms of national policy, government recognition, possible impact in education, and the link between private and public partnerships, informal, formal education. So y'all are on the front line of something really, really big. This is what we found out by being in DC for 2 different maker fairs, a whole bunch of different summits and symposiums, that sort of thing. It's on the lips and thoughts and minds of people in the Department of Education, Patent Office, AAAS, and American Advancement of Science Association, and then National Science Foundation. A whole bunch of places are paying great amounts of attention to this. And of course, huge amounts of libraries and museums. So it's a big deal, folks, what y'all are involved with. And we were real happy to be at the White House to see this national celebration, making many of you, your museums and organizations and host sites celebrated this National Day of Making, and in fact celebrated every day. So we just wanted to kind of acknowledge that awesomeness and the fact that you all are part of it.
Yeah.
Yay.
All right, well, let's have y'all introduce yourselves, starting with Santina. Let's see. Here we go.
Okay. Hi, I'm Santina Protopapa. I'm with Progressive Arts Alliance here in Cleveland, Ohio.
Ooh. Louise.
Hi, Louise. You're muted,
Louise.
I believe.
Yeah, there we go.
I'm on. I am Louise Larson. I'm the program coordinator with Assemble here in Pittsburgh.
Woohoo!
Pittsburgh.
All right, and now
Let's see if
Free Library.
Free Library. Are you on? There you go.
Hey. Hi, I'm Sari. I'm a maker mentor through the Free Library.
I'm Bobby. I also am a maker mentor.
My name's Dora. I'm also a maker mentor.
And I'm BK. I'm a maker mentor, and I do a lot of other stuff. So.
Oh, thanks for joining us. You guys are all on the East Coast. All right. So we want to get started with talking about icebreakers.
Yeah. We kind of debated earlier about what kind of icebreaker to have to introduce icebreakers. So meta.
Yeah.
We thought, though, we would ask for some of the shortest, smallest examples of icebreakers that you may have used in the past. but also include in that some small ones that aren't so successful. So if you have a story of an icebreaker kind of failing its job, or not working so much, you can include that as well. So just to get going, we'd like everybody to kind of think at least one per site of a successful icebreaker, something that got a group kind of tied together, or one that really didn't work out so well and you hoped had gone better. And then we'll get into a deeper discussion about the broad topic of what do you do to unite small groups for any level and time of engagement.
And y'all are also free to demonstrate.
Yeah, absolutely. We will act out. We're role-playing, doing our own little icebreakers. So any ideas to get going? We could get started, but I'd love to hear from our guests. Successful icebreakers you guys have used in the past, ways of getting kids connected. Any examples out there?
We've done a really, really, really simple thing of just getting people to introduce their names and remember names, where we've had students say their name and then a type of food that also begins with the same letter as their name. And we've had some really creative food choices that got like actually pretty funny and then enabled people to remember those names really quickly. So it's really simple and it sounds a little cheesy, but students get really into it.
You know, everybody eats.
Yeah.
So.
Immediately I was like, Nancy Noodle.
Right. And then you can't use a food if someone has already used it. So then that if you have like 30 kids in a room, it starts getting interesting.
There goes ice cream right there. I saw a hand up in
Free Library.
Free Library. Any examples? Icebreaker examples at Free Library.
I'm good.
Yeah,
Pretty good. Yeah, so I've done a lot of work with camps in the past, and one that's always a really big hit as like the very first icebreaker is something called Human Knot, and the Human Knot is like it's really really for actually.
Yeah, go ahead. Don't worry about us.
We got it.
We broke it. Sorry.
Our room.
Our room's falling apart.
But yeah, I like the Human Knot especially as like the first one, just in case there's some people in the crowd who are maybe nervous to like say something. There's not really any necessarily talking involved, but everyone still has to be involved physically. And it's like everyone is goofy and giggling by the end.
Yeah.
That's a really nice point. Your nonverbal engagement option is well taken.
That's a really good thing. One of my favorite icebreakers is the rock, paper, scissors or Rochambeau challenge. It's like a tournament challenge. I think you guys might know it, where everyone pairs up and does rock, paper, scissors and does the best of 3. And then when you lose, you actually become the cheerleader for your winning partner. So ultimately, it can be like a tiny group of people or it can be a group of like 100, and it's really quick, actually. So at the very end, there's 2 people facing off against each other. Rock, paper, scissors, totally serious, obviously, and there are crowds of people cheering each of them on.
That's cool.
That's a great one.
That's a great one.
That's cool. Any other small examples of successful or unsuccessful icebreakers out there?
One of my favorite icebreakers is the Snowball Fight. So if you just take a sheet of paper, have everyone write down 3 things about themselves that no one else knows, or at least no one else in the room knows, crumple them up into balls, and then have a snowball fight. And then you stand in a circle, you grab one of the sheets of paper, and then you have to guess who it is. And it's pretty serious most of the time.
That sounds like that's really fun, because who doesn't love to throw things, right?
So great.
And then you get to uncrumple the paper and find out something that's original. And odds are you don't have your own thing, so that sounds cool.
Yeah, I love the snowball fight.
That's actually sounding pretty fun.
We love it.
Yeah. Any other last examples before we kind of delve a little bit deeper into some ways of making these perhaps even more relevant to the entire experience that you're trying to make? I can start out with some examples, some making examples. So one of the funnest icebreaker activities that I've done with students in classes and in tinkering is the neutral balloon challenge. So this requires a little bit of planning because you have to have helium and everything, but you pair up students randomly and they are challenged to get a balloon to float neutrally. So they have materials, tape, all sorts of things to be able to get a balloon to float and not rise or sink. With 2 people working together and the variations of a room and everything, very quickly they have to evolve a system of being able to add and subtract small amounts of weight to trim its rise or fall. But I'm going to share a few screenshots with you of just how fun that is, because it could have been, rather than a mere icebreaker, it could have been something they did for hours because they really want to continue it. But I'll show you some examples of that. So this is an example of actually starting right off the bat with actually making something. So here we go. So you can see students right now spazzing out over the awesome balloons. And one of the cool things that happens when you do the balloon challenge is the balloons get caught up on the roof all the time. And so they have to invent ways to get them down, which includes all sorts of ways, so kind of cleverly.
What's the bottom left?
Bottom left is a student who's using sticks to get the to get it down from the ceiling. So and those that were really successful with the balloon challenge were able to help out others if they were stuck, or help around and keep the balloons from getting stuck on the ceiling and get them back down and everything. So that was just a small little example of a making segue towards general tinkering. But, any other examples out there of actually starting out by making that anybody's tried? We've got names and the small things that we have mentioned, but anybody else have approaches that involve making to begin with?
I mean, I think a tried and true one is the marshmallow toothpick challenge or the gumdrop toothpick challenge. Bake something as tall or as wide as possible with a group of kids who don't know each other, and that's a really easy way for them to engage hands-on and collaborate.
Yeah. Not only that, you're challenging them right off the bat. When you challenge children to do something, you're giving them the opportunity to perform and do something that is truly theirs. Mm-hmm. So you can make it an open-ended challenge. Mm-hmm. You can make it a very specific challenge. It's whatever approach you're most comfortable with, or whatever you have for materials, whatever time frame you have. Mm-hmm. So
it can be as fast or as short as you want.
Absolutely. And sometimes you might find these icebreakers go, like I said, they can go all very long. Yeah. One icebreaker that turned from an icebreaker into an entire hour of tinkering was I locked my keys into my car. And I challenged my class. I did this in the math class. I did this with several Odyssey and Olympics of the Mind and Destination Imagine teams that I've coached in the past, where I provide small little ways to get into my car, tiny little windows that are rolled down, or it's an old car, or it used to be where you can actually pull up the lock. But I would provide a whole bunch of different ways to actually get into the car by actually being real creative in material use, or clever about ways that you break into a car non-destructively. Every time
did it ever go wrong, Steve? Was there ever a window broken?
No, it never went wrong. Either way, like sometimes with I always had a hidden backup. I never would tell them. I'd be like, all right, guys, and make a big show of putting the key in the car. You don't need to do that necessarily, but what you can show them is right off the bat that you trust them. You're like, I don't know how you're going to do this, guys, but you can take your keys and throw them out into the field and say, okay, guys, go get them. But this is an example of showing your trust in the collective powers of a team and something they can do. Or I like the idea of setting up a challenge that in some way pits them against you in a fun, friendly way. Or sometimes if I meet a group of students for the first time, I'll say, like, you guys surprise me. Here's a bunch of materials. I'm going to go away for 5 minutes, leave you all alone, come back and let's get this started with a surprise from you guys, and they'll come back with a skit or something they've made, or they own it. You get away from it, and so these are a little bit challenging, a little bit risky sometimes, but it surprises the heck out of kids because right off the bat you set the tone of like, all right, this is really more about you than me, so I'm leaving. Or I'm locking my keys in the car.
Okay.
So, awesome. Challenge approaches. Any other ideas about ways to more concretely kind of set the tone for your making experience? We're trying to think of ways all here collectively of having the icebreaker actually very smoothly and just seg into the actual activity itself, or be part of the experience that you're trying to set.
Yeah.
What kind of tone? I mean, it's great to have names and all those sorts of things like that, but how might you actually include making or something where the children have more autonomy and empowerment?
Yeah, and collaboration.
Yeah,
and I think, Santina, I think at one of our last Hangouts you had mentioned something about, kid management and classroom management and things like that, and I feel like icebreakers can segue really nicely into that even. I know I used to work at camps a lot too, and one of the things that we often did as instructors and facilitators would be to open up the beginning to have the kids set the guidelines for the workshop, for the session, for the class, whatever, and they're the ones who write the poster of rules or whatever whatever it was, or they write on the whiteboard, or they create whatever it is, signage that they need to create, but they're all doing it together, and that way, one, they're getting to know each other, and two, they're collaborating and kind of deciding themselves what they want their experience to look like.
Right. From the very beginning, you're putting your trust in them. I have written down when I do that variation that Stephanie's talking about, I say, let's have the reels be positive things. Let's have them not be no's.
Sure, exactly.
Do this, yes, and you can, yeah.
We've done the same thing in our hip hop camp. They're not called rules; they're called guidelines, and each group
better word.
their guidelines, and it ends up being awesome and hilarious. One of the groups said one of their guidelines was we're not allowed to have crushes on each other.
Almost 100%
They made a pact. Nobody was going to have a crush on anyone in the group. Put it right out there, so they didn't get, that didn't, because that interferes with the work.
Are these teens by any chance?
Yes, those were high school. That was the oldest, like 11th and 12th graders. These weren't like 11-year-olds.
I don't know, but I think fully half of a teen's brain is taken up with crushes. If you're lucky, you only half.
I love that guideline. That's
great.
a good one.
And then we've had a challenge where present your guidelines in a situation or a presentation where everybody has to contribute to the presentation of your guidelines. Everybody has to say something or find a way that everybody's contributing to sharing them with the group. And we've had things like someone talking and someone dancing and someone posing. So just making sure that everybody always has a role.
That's beautiful.
It's really nice to invite that role theatrically. And so when you're trying to do something social emotional, there's nothing more powerful sometimes with children than having them actually act out what they think might go wrong. So if you want from the very beginning, how might it be if
a room full of crushes.
Yes, acting in a room full of crushes. Oh, they would go the whole time with that, exactly. Or somebody feels excluded. Like somebody's a quarter not doing something. Act out how you might invite them.
Yeah.
Very seriously, the children see that from the very beginning, and it makes them feel more comfortable to actually be empowered to do the right thing themselves, or less afraid that if they're going to be all alone or left out or excluded, that they wouldn't get taken care of. So you can think of scenarios, they can come up with them. The crush scenario would be great.
I love it.
We're not going to be able to get over that crush thing, right? It's going to be a guideline from now on for every hangout. So.
No Google crushes.
Oh man, no kidding. But
any other ideas?
Yeah, this is great. These are starting to kind of evolve as possibilities in other directions. Any ideas? Yeah, Louise.
This is maybe less of an icebreaker, but some introductory activities that we've done before include so like physical programming. So when you are talking about Scratch, you have one person who's the sprite. And then maybe a group of people.
Yeah.
Which I think that getting kids to laugh right away. So if you're telling someone to walk straight and they trip, or if they have to walk into the door, it like everyone can laugh.
Oh yeah, you can hilariously have any class understand programming very quickly if you yourself become the program and you're crashing into things or taking what they say very literally. Like write a program to make a sandwich or that sort of thing. So
that's true.
That's another nice. If you are going to be having coding as part of your element, it's a really fun way to start out by actually programming each other. Who's the designated robot?
That's a great idea.
And then if you're the designated robot, you can of course have fun taking them extremely literally.
Yeah.
So that's a great idea. I want to have icebreakers as well.
Do you mind if I share one more?
Yeah.
Do. You froze for a second, so I got really nervous.
This is going to happen. It's all right.
We were teaching Thimble, and to introduce the idea to the kids, we had one of the like web-structable templates made, but the account was hacked, and so the instructor projected it on the wall and said, "Oh my gosh, someone hacked my account. This says my favorite band is Justin Bieber. My favorite color is gray. This is my favorite place," and he like played it up, and the kids were laughing, and so then he sort of tried to introduce the ideas of different like headings and lists and how to embed video, but by asking them, so if I wanted to change this, how do you what do you think my first steps would be, and sort of got them thinking about computational logic.
That's so awesome.
That's cool.
I love that,
Really
and then
great.
I love that out of this conversation is naturally coming the things we'd hoped would come up and more, and that right off the bat setting the tone of authority for the class itself. They have something to contribute. They're helping you out, and you are from the very beginning in your icebreaker saying, "I need your help. I don't want to have Justin Bieber as my, as my account." So yeah. So anyway, that's a fantastic way to do it. Really have this goal, or I'll speak for myself. When I confront a class for the first time, or any students of any time, I want them to right off the bat feel like collaborators with me, and more importantly with each other. Set the tone for peer-to-peer support. Set the tone for their involvement, engagement, empowerment in the class. So, yeah. I had another note about a way of starting. I had a lot of students in my tinkering workshops that would show up kind of late, and so you couldn't actually have everybody start all at once, but you wanted to have something going right off the bat. So I always had things to take apart right off in the beginning. So if you got a class that's trickling in, you could have a dedicated couple tables where things are being taken apart continually and the parts are being sorted or put out somewhere else, but you can start by taking apart. And it's a fantastic way to invite somebody in a quiet way. You can take things apart collaboratively. You can take things apart if you want to ease into the group and you're a very shy person, but you can focus on taking something apart. That provides many different paths of possible collaboration in the beginning, or even your own little space that turns into something. So starting by taking apart, I just want to give a little shout out for. So.
One of our Maker Vistas shared with an icebreaker with me. A quiet one that sort of eases the kids in is she likes to give out tools to her class and have them switch off every minute. Exchange tools, and that gets us, there's no spotlight put on anyone, and it's, share it with your friend, or switch it up. I thought that was a really great point. It's Rachel from Being Together. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, I think another good quiet one too, and this is like along the lines of storytelling, is to have everyone write one sentence and then write two sentences, cover up the second sentence, and then have people pass it around and have them continue it on. Santina's shaking her head. I think she said this before too. And it's so fun because at the end you get to read them out, and they're so weird and random, but there's some connection in there because they have to connect the sentences together.
Yeah, and you could ask for a sentence that connects what they're doing, what they hope to do, and you can also invite of them what their hopes for what they're doing are. And so from the very beginning you're asking, what do you hope to get out of this class? And also another thing that's nice to ask is, what do you want? What do you have to contribute? So it kind of goes back to the 3 things about you kind of thing in the Snowball Fight. But you could have one of those things be, my gift to this community would be, I'm really good at music, or I'm super snippy with scissors, or I'm an awesome sewer, or something like that. But then right off the bat you have like, okay, what are my gifts I can bring to everybody? And then when children in particular hear about gifts of others, it makes them think about ones they might have. And it's a nice way to, another empowerment possibility. So this is nice. I feel like, yeah.
We've done something like, what do you hope to achieve during this camp, or what's something you hope to explore, or what's something you want to challenge yourself with? And we'd love to see what their challenge is the first day, like, I want to become a better dancer. And then by the end, how that's sort of evolved over time, where maybe the dance thing didn't come out so much because they found something else that was challenging. So I think those big open-ended questions are really effective.
That's cool. That's like an opportunity for reflection too. That's really neat.
Yeah,
I love it.
If you capture that initial moment and then you reflect about back to the end of the camp, we sometimes would act out, how do you want to be at the end of the year? Who are you going to be at the end of the year, and what are you going to know? Or, and children love this, but adults do too, time traveling. So you just pretend you're time traveling to the future, or you're like your future self, or like, and you're talking about in the past tense, when I took this class 20 years ago or 100 years ago, it really made me want to build this station I'm living on the moon, or whatever, right? So it's an invitation for imagination and play, and I think you can't go wrong with just about any icebreaker if it involves that playful element. So
awesome.
Yeah. Fun times. Any other ideas about ways of beginning with groups and kids?
One way of entry that I've kind of found is making spin tops with kids, and just like leaving. You can do this with adults, and you can do it with teens, and you can do it with people in college as well. But you just leave a bunch of parts on tables, so you can leave like Play-Doh, clay, anything really. And the prompt and the challenge is just to make spin tops, and you let that go for a while. And the cool part is, after the process of making, everybody starts spinning stuff, and basically it's not just that little challenge. It's like, how did you make that? People start talking and connecting, and also people start almost kind of like fighting spin tops and challenging who wins, who's breaks, who stops the other faster. And as a way of making as an entry, and you can do it in teams, you can do it individually. At the end of the day, everybody's coming together. I found that as a really good method of.
Great.
Yeah. It would be nice to actually start out with some musical provocations as well, right?
Yeah.
Make songs, make something together, perform a skit. Something I've had great success with also in classrooms in particular is having students form small and draw ideas. So if you could make anything, just like remove all barriers, what would you build? And then get the kids around poster boards, sharing in small groups and drawing together. And in the end, they can kind of have a poster presentation where they're sharing their ideas and going around in a circle. So right off the bat, you've got kind of a spotlight on their imagination and what they would love to be able to do. And of course, there's always going to be a kernel of practicality or something in them, no matter how fanciful they might be. So, but drawing as a form of making and setting that precedence right from the beginning, or honoring what you draw and make together, is a real nice way to start as well. And then you can have those posters up the whole time and kind of add to them. And they could also be a nice segue towards introducing the concept of regular use of a notebook to capture ideas.
Yeah.
So it's that documentation habit built up.
All right, I think it's time to move on to our second question. That's 30 minutes of icebreaker discussion has been really good. So our big question, with the title of our event, is developing a maker's mindset. So I just wanted to ask everyone, what is a maker's mindset? What is your maker's mindset? And how might we develop that? A big question.
Big question. Do any of you guys want to get started? It's something that MakerEd struggles with a lot, so we'll fully admit to that.
One thing that makes us struggle less with it is the acknowledgement that there are many maker's mindsets, and there's not a maker mindset. So,
which is why I said, so what's your maker mindset?
Exactly. And as we said, we have a panel in the Maker Fair in DC where we asked everybody, what is your maker ed? Which is, what is your maker education? What's your idea of maker education? And what is it for you personally? Acknowledging that there's many approaches to it. So, maker mindsets. What are some of the most important ones in your mind about what you'd like to engender and what you're doing?
I'll go. I think our maker mindset is rooted in the design process. And we kind of see all these overlaps in the design process and the artistic process in terms of making things iterative, exploring problems that you want to solve, collaborating with others, presenting your ideas. So I think that's where we come along. So principally during the school year, our arts education programs go into STEM schools, and they're already looking at the design process anyway as part of a STEM curriculum, and it just overlaps really nicely with the arts and artistic design process, and so I think that's where we come from.
That's nice.
That's great.
Yeah.
Nice. Any other mindsets out there? Maybe some surprising or ones? Yeah.
Yeah, picking off of that, I feel like a lot of just being stuck in the iteration loop of how can I not only make something, but how can I make something else better or remix something, and just always sort of having those conversations and thoughts and encouraging that idea.
Nice. Anything from the free library for mindsets? I know you got quite a few there.
That's right.
So for me, I think the most important thing is, for myself and also for the kids that I work with, is letting go and having it be okay to fail. Some of the kids that we work with are really young, so we'll work with kids that are 4 years old who already have ideas about what's right, what's wrong, what color this should be, what size this should be. And I think it's definitely a struggle to get them to let go of those ideas and realize that, you know, there is no right way of doing something, and you can explore, and that's fine, and that's a good thing. And so for me, that's the most important thing about Maker Mindset.
That's good.
You got one, Jeremy?
Oh, wait.
Oh,
I think free library.
Okay, sorry, we're still on you.
Yeah, I was going to touch on sort of what Luis was talking about like encouraging remixing and change. Just like it's that idea that you can actually engage with the things that you use every day and actually change them and make them better and sort of have more control over the things that you actually interact with, and just like at a larger sense,
you have the power to change a lot of things.
That's great.
Lots of nodding going on over there.
Yeah. I guess I can piggyback off of that a bit. I know for me, I would say one of my biggest maker mindsets, aside from creativity, would have to be my flexibility. And what I mean by that is just staying open to the change of like various situations. I mean, a part of being a maker is to always change and find new ways of doing things. And one thing, just as you get in the habit of, after doing things for so long, you can somehow be one-track minded or like to approach things in one way. And I try to always remain flexible in my approaches and what I understand or how I do things as it relates with anything.
Absolutely.
Because it's always changing.
One route towards that, I think, and the most important thing to me, beyond anything a child would ever learn and any experience that they have, is that they develop empathy and perspective for others.
Yeah.
Strong sense of self, a strength in themselves so they can go out and help others and be an asset to others. But we're building future citizens here, many of which will be taking care of y'all in the future. So I think that what we do, this empowerment opportunity that we have for children, is the most important outcome of all. It's in some ways hard to measure in a sense, but you can see it. All of us have seen it. This idea of like a child feels like they have something to offer a group, adults, everything. So part of making that happen is this interdisciplinary nature of the maker mindset, of welcoming and getting excited about what other people are excited about. So like multiple routes to making and multiple recognitions of different forms of kinds of making. So keeping that as broad as possible so that everybody feels included.
Yeah. I think a lot of what everyone mentioned too aligns really nicely with the idea of the growth mindset and not the fixed mindset, and that was something that came out of
Carol Dweck.
Well, Carol Dweck was a Stanford professor, and a lot of what we do in working with kids can enable that too, because of what our praise or our feedback or things like that are, to help them think through and guide them through whatever frustrations or mistakes they make, and make sure that that's okay along the way too. So that's really nice to hear that it aligns so nicely.
Yeah. Well, touching on what you just said about interdisciplinary entry points and recognizing everything. What are some other, I know Jeremy, you were talking about this the other day. This comes from Jeremy's question, multiple entry points to making. Jeremy's a big musician, so.
Well, yeah, like so the music approach would be my most favorite entry point to making, because I am a musician, and it's not more or less from the point of skilled music, but the fact of just giving kids the challenge to put something together that makes sound or either create sound or just making something that they've had or, would like, or how they envision an instrument to be, and, giving them the opportunity to do that is a great approach to, making. I think so.
Yeah.
I always like to find out what children love. What do you love to do the most? What is most exciting to you? And I guarantee you that you can connect anything a child loves to do with making of some kind. Brianna, our office assistant, shared a video with me earlier today of 3 little 6-year-old skateboarding girls. So they call themselves the Pink Helmet Posse. And, oh no, did my computer die here? Sorry guys, we're having technical difficulties here. Hopefully I didn't die out. Thank you. Let's see if it comes back. Oh, computer's still here. Oh, our monitor's gone.
Oh, no.
Okay, we're back.
We're back.
Sorry, guys. Our whole monitor cut out here. So anyway, three 6-year-old girls who love skateboarding. Now, skateboarding is making, because you're making connections, tricks, there's social things to it. Whenever you do something athletic, and this is another thing that's not normally seen necessarily as making, but you're building yourself, you're building something collectively as a team, you're building the skills, and there's all sorts of hooks for every sport, whether it's individual or team or casual or competitive. So there are many, many facets out there. It's hard to say what's not making. Really.
Yeah.
I don't think it diminishes the word to not put boundaries on it. It's more of like a how can that be made better, kind of thing.
Yeah.
I think actually our guests have all very different approaches to making, which is really exciting to have all of you here. What would you consider to be your entry approach for your kids that you work with?
Preferred or perhaps non-traditional, or any ways of gathering and connecting a child's or your own interest to making? This is too abstract for the East Coast.
Alright, so I come from a video. Oh, sorry.
No, you're on. You're up. Yep.
We are? Okay. I come from a video and independent media background a little bit, and one of the kids at a site that I'm working at was actually writing a film. He was writing a script for like a sci-fi Godfather kind of movie. And so that was really great because we were able to take that project and have all the different kids participate in different ways. So some people are working on learning how to use the camera and use the green screen and edit. Other kids are working on creating costumes and learning how to sew, and other kids are making props and the set out of cardboard, and others are using like digital image editing things to create backdrops for the green screen and stuff like that. So there's like all these different ways, and then the new skills that we learned through that project also extend to like new projects that are based on those skills. So it's been a really fun thing to work on, and we haven't even made the movie yet, but it's already, I think everybody's already learned a lot.
That's awesome.
That's really great.
I think theater and film are two of my favorite examples of interdisciplinary things that have been around forever and are making clearly, right? But you don't even need to self-identify as a maker or self-identify something to be making as it is. Yeah. Creative endeavors come in many ways. But yeah, theater, filmmaking, cool stuff. Any other ideas out there?
I like to cook. I think that's a really good way to introduce.
Food.
Yeah, food. Everyone loves eating food. Everyone's got a favorite food.
Also, Nancy does not folw recipes when she bakes, which is amazing.
So it could either be amazing or terrible, and you never know. And they always have to eat it. That's my.
I'm always a willing taster.
I think a lot of people who haven't been to Maker Fairs don't realize that a good portion of Maker Fair are food, sharing,
gardening,
and a huge amount of stuff that doesn't involve technology at all. I mean, it gets the highest visibility of making the electronics, the LEDs, the Arduinos, and that sort of thing. But we exist in Maker Ed especially to remind people that making comes in all forms, low and high tech.
I learned how to spin wool with using a CD and a pencil at Maker Fair. It was amazing. It was so great.
I saw a spirograph chalk maker that was gigantic. You know, like it was making huge spirograph designs of sidewalk chalk. Coolest stuff ever. Lowest tech, highest tech. It's all
and
there.
It can start with tech too. Like I've worked with a lot of youth who love to play video games, but then they start making their own, which is kind of incredible, and that's their entry point, which is just as good.
Yeah, absolutely. You can do something completely digital and still have it be a wonderful form of making. I know we say a lot, and we have a preference for analog digital balance, but the digital form of making, coding, programming, gaming.
That's huge. Yeah.
Yeah, so music production. All good stuff. Yeah.
I think, Louise, you were going to say something.
Oh, good. Hands raised.
Or Santina.
Yeah, I see hands out there.
Oh, and
Santina, are you up?
Yeah. I think the key to all of that is something we've been calling here in Cleveland voice and choice. Like really allowing our students to really create something that they're invested in. And it's not the joke we have in our offices. We don't ever want them to make like the hand turkeys. You know, like the hand turkey they make at Thanksgiving, it's all the same hand turkey thing. We don't want that. You know, we don't want a template where everybody's recreating it. And so we've done that with media, where we've had the same, you know, like make an animation about this topic, but they've been so different because they had to have their voice and make their choices on the materials and the way they were going to shoot it. And so I think that's really key to think about in terms of just making in general.
The hand turkey model is one that I like to pick on so much. We had a Maker Corps mentor last year who was a 26-year teacher, and she reflected to the group of Maker Corps mentors that after 26 years she finally decided to quit doing the hand turkeys for her children and just open up the crafts, open up the cabinet to her children and have them develop their own projects. And she said it never went better. And this, in fact, started shaping her classroom for the whole year after her experience as a Maker Corps mentor. So yeah, hand turkeys can be fun, but I have a personal crusade against the hand turkey form of Scribblebots and Artbots because, as we all know and we've all experienced through our development camp and the programs you're running, there are many restrictive certain ways to do one kind of Artbot. And then there are ways of providing materials and asking for an invitation. I'll share a few with a symposium we did in DC not too long ago. Had many possibility boxes that were about this size on each table. so mostly craft materials, some office materials, and that sort of thing. And each table of 10 was invited to kind of create something that made art or is art. Here's a flamingo that actually painted with these blocks of his feet. So it's kind of all messed up here, but this really worked. His head's all there. So
there's his head.
Yeah. And the cool thing is, with the liquid watercolor approach, you're removing the necessity of having to have markers. So all of a sudden, many things can actually make an impression, a trace, or a brush. This is one of my favorites right here. You can see that it's bent felt pipe cleaner. And so this actually made multiple lines at once because they would just dip this in either paint or micro watercolor, in liquid watercolor. And so it had many traces all at once, but it didn't even depend on Q-tips or something like that. So this is the kind of opposite of the cookie cutter approach, right, that you're speaking of as a mindset of possibility.
I think Free Library had their hands up. Is that right? No?
Maybe not.
Maybe not.
We could just guess. Maybe
they did.
Odds are that they would, right? There we go. Yeah.
This is a little bit off.
Off topic is good.
That's okay.
You're good. You're good.
Okay, am I going?
Glad to hear everything. Okay, go for it.
Thanks, Louise.
Got a cat in the background.
A little bit off topic, but just to respond to what you guys were just talking about with the open-ended approach, I think that it's really important to pay attention to your group and what they're responding to, because while that, like, having the open chest of supplies and telling them to just go for it can work really well with one group, sometimes when you leave it that open-ended, the kids can get really intimidated and they feel really pressured to come up with something really, really cool, and then they freeze up and they're just like, I don't know what to do. Yeah. So there are other times when you have to have a little bit of structure, if only to have that structure so that they'll rebel against it.
I like how you put that very much.
Yeah.
And it's true, that's the reason I keep multiple kinds of examples around for ArtBots if any groups get stuck. So I can kind of put them off to the side as a small little subtle inspiration or example of what's possible. But it'll never be just one thing. But it will provide multiple starting points and everything. But your point is an extremely good one, because actually some kids and some people really love to follow directions. They really love to build kits that are very set, and they get a lot of satisfaction from that. So we want to honor that learning style as well and provide that possibility if that's what people want. So,
and that is a totally valid entry point.
It is.
Okay,
It
yeah.
is.
And I think a lot of you, you guys obviously work and know the communities that you work with and the youth and audiences that you work with, so you can adapt and change things completely to what works best for you. And we're here to support and learn from that too.
Yes. Thank you so much for, I always go off on the deep end about open-ended stuff and everything, but I always trust that there's this whole spectrum of approach of people that will come back and remind me that there is a spectrum of ways of learning, and there is a validity in the more structured example approach.
Definitely.
Yeah, cool. That's what we got to
Go, Louise!
Okay, Louise.
I was really nervous about this question. I was curious what everyone else was going to say because I was thinking about it, and making is so thoroughly a habit of mind, in my opinion, that when you were talking about access points, the first thing that, or entry points, I was thinking about how it's literally our building and how giving people into our space is sort of how we can provide that entryway for them, literally and figuratively. Yeah, I think that as educators and program managers, we're constantly scrambling to figure out new ways mid-program to think, like, if this person wants to be the note taker, or if this person wants to be the structural designer, how can we facilitate that? And a good example of that was in a video game course that we were teaching a while ago, is midway through we scrapped getting into a hard coding section and just did makey controller design. So kids were able to delve more into like physical making rather than, nerding out on the computer, which both have a soft spot in my heart. But it's tough.
Nice.
I love it. Absolutely. 3,000%.
Well, the mindset that you brought up and the space itself brings up the role of the environment itself in facilitating and making kids feel welcome and as an entry point. So you can walk into a room that has open access to materials to explore, wide open spaces to spread things out, tools that are clearly marked for their use that aren't like restricted. So you can get to some simple tools at first, and maybe the more complex ones are a little hidden away. But an environment and what it displays about how it honors children's work, how comfortable it is, this lighting, all those aspects have a huge amount to do with how comfortable a person feels into a space. And that an environment can be an invitation to making in itself.
It's great that you pinpointed that your building is that entry point.
Yeah.
We love that, especially in regards to maker spaces. And those can look like whatever you want them to look like, but having a building to do that is fantastic.
This is cool.
Yeah.
An artist we work with actually travels with what she calls a wall of inspiration, which is a series of pictures she's strung together of like wild, crazy things, like just all kinds of amazing pictures from all over the world. And she thinks that having this like environment that just has all this stimulus, and it could be like a great way for kids just to get excited and like, oh, I noticed a cool pattern there, or oh, I love the color in that, just to really get them excited and inspired. So I think thinking about the environment too is always interesting.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Any other thoughts? These are called the Google pauses, the hangout awkward moments. I like an environment that includes evidence of children's work. Not too cluttered, not too much, but always evidence that children were around. Like this room, for example. So, while we were away in DC, National Day of Making, my coworkers turned the entire room into a big old loom. So you know the child is very much alive in my colleagues here.
Yeah.
But there's evidence of, I would say, of creative adult maker. Festivity, you know, like, yeah. A space that's a little bit lived in, something that takes on a patina of use. So, in a sense.
We have a patina.
We have a patina of use, yes, we do. Yeah, but there's something to be said for a very organized, very structured, minimalistic environment as well. So, lots of people.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah. Any other thoughts?
Any other thoughts?
Any other mindsets?
This isn't a mindset, but I feel like the patina in Assemble is just the fact that our floor is covered in glitter.
Yeah! It never goes away, right? Yeah.
That's a good sign.
That's
great.
What do you use glitter for usually?
Everything.
Yeah?
Everything.
That's funny.
That's awesome.
That is too cool. Patina.
Well, another question I asked all of y'all before we came on today was, are there any certain skills for the maker mindset that can be applied to other areas if you don't necessarily want to keep being a maker, whatever that would be? How could you not?
Like, what are the most...
Yeah, what are the takeaways from maker programming that might be applied to other areas?
We, at Assemble, we just started doing some badging, which is really exciting, but we have been talking about this exact question for a while. But to play off of something that Philly was talking about earlier, I think that failure is, and your attitude while you're going through failure is really a massive takeaway, that when you can sort of coach or help guide students through a project that isn't going so well or that hasn't gone well, and then talking about how that can be applied to other elements of your life. So, I don't know. I'm doing a really poor job explaining what I mean, but having an attitude through a failure and the making process, whether that's in skateboarding, in the pink bicycle helmet posse, whatever, or, you know, whatever you're building.
Louise, I think you make a really good point, because it may not be like hard soldering skills. It might just be your mindset and your approach and the way that you work through things that might be the biggest thing that comes out of the process of making, which is fantastic. And that's just kind of lifelong learning too, right?
Yeah, and I think that, and this is to reiterate what I said earlier, but your self-identity, your confidence that you know you can do something, that you've tried something hard, that you share it with others, your tendency to collaborate, and your empathy for problem solving, your ability to see yourself as a problem solver. So we have this whole planet full of a lot of problems for people and the environment that we live in. If you see yourself as a part of a potential solution for that, it's quite empowering, and you're more likely to go out and try to see those examples of ways that you yourself can solve those problems. So that would be one of the most important things to take away, this desire to share it with others and actually make a difference in the world. Big deal.
I think along with that is risk-taking.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Awesome. I like, one of the things that I really like about making is like the discovery of things that I need to learn how to do at the moment, like in the moment, that I have no idea how to do and don't even know where to start, but I have to figure it out in order to move along in whatever project I'm trying to work on. And so that sort of like learning just in time sort of thing is kind of neat. And it's also great because we have all these resources and collaborators and people on hand that we can ask. And so that's kind of a neat skill, if you want to call it that, too.
And we have makers that love to share what they do. They are so good at what they do, and then they document it and walk you through it and help you out. People that are on our Maker Core community, for example. But the whole world is full of people that document and share themselves really well, so unselfishly. I think that's one of the most amazing things about the community. An unselfish giving nature is really encouraged.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
One more thing that I think is a skill that is helpful to kids outside of just making, but since we're doing programming that's really like based on the students' interests, it's great to see kids make the things that are in their heads in the real world and kind of validate their ideas and thoughts. Like one kid in my program wanted to make masks and Greek busts, and we were like, yeah, cool, and just helped him, like provided tools and watched him do it. So
that's great.
That's really great.
What a beautiful mindset. The mindset that honors a child's theory, no matter how crazy, right? I had a group of students that would come and share with me every day their ideas about how they wanted to make a hot lava probe. They were curious about whether microbes could actually live in the extreme light environment of hot lava. Of course, kids love hot lava and they love robots. So they actually were thinking about, let's maybe mix all the metals together, or how would the propellers work in hot lava, or what kind of camera would you use? But they would talk amongst themselves about the need to actually test different kinds of metal mixes to see what would survive hot lava. But they were drawing it, they were showing it, and I got to honor their thoughts by paying attention and keep asking more questions. I certainly could have said, that'll never work. But someday when a microbe is found in hot lava because one of those kids went on and made the hot lava probe, you know. But yeah, what a beautiful mindset to honor a child's theories and imagination, and to see where you can go with that.
And not only honor, but allow it.
Yes,
really cool.
yes.
That's really cool.
And to say that no matter how fanciful an idea might be, like the idea of a watch that programs you and jumps you around in a teleportation sense, which I just heard on our community, right? Can you build a prototype for that? Can you figure out what the infrastructure might be? What would it look like? How might it work? What would be the issues that came up? You can ask all sorts of questions that don't necessarily require the actual working at the moment technology.
Yeah.
And to piggyback a little bit off of kind of what everybody said, I think it's also a great skill that this develops particularly is the ability to tell your story or a story. And that's one of the hardest things even for me now, to tell a story around making. But actually being in making, you know, developing that skill of how to translate what's in my mind or what's in the kid's mind, which could be some outrageous idea to the, you know, obvious, you know, regular common person, but his ability to get them to understand, or he or she to understand, is like a very good skill to have.
Communication skills. Absolutely.
Very good.
Absolutely. Sharing ideas and getting it through. Beautiful.
And we all struggle with telling our story too. I would say we encourage you to tell your story so that we can learn from you too.
no matter what you do to invite a child into a class for an icebreaker, I think one of the best possible icebreakers of all, just to kind of circle back to that, is to show your own vulnerability in a sense, and your own what you don't know, what kind of help you need, what you really like, a funny story about yourself, so you're not building yourself up. And this requires a little bit of a letting go of an ego, which is all right. But a child really sees that and responds very well to that, because it makes them feel more confident and more goofy and more able to tell their story, which I just love the way of that.
That's great. Well, we've got about 5 minutes left in the broadcast, so if any of our viewers want to ask a question or make a comment, we are monitoring YouTube and the Q&A. There's a bit of a lag, so give us a minute or so. But
so maybe we can ask, what are your favorite mindsets? What is your maker ed? Like, what is your vision of a maker in education, formal or informal?
And if you're watching this later, not live, post it on the community and we can get a discussion started.
And if you're not on our community, because you're watching in the general public, go ahead and post a comment. We do moderate them, but it will show up.
Yep.
So anyway, any last comments from our wonderful participants that are on the central and eastern side of the nation?
Cleveland? Actually, Cleveland?
Cleveland.
Central or? I don't remember.
On the East Coast, we're not that Midwest.
East Coast. As I was saying, I've been to Cleveland. I'm pretty sure East Coast.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
East of the Mississippi.
Yeah, it is.
One side or the other.
I love Cleveland, by the way.
We love it all. We
Yeah.
love you guys for participating so late.
Yeah.
So this is great.
Thank you.
Thank you for visiting Oakland virtually.
Yes.
Appreciate it. So,
Still light outside.
Yeah, welcome to California.
into our office with the patina of use.
Any last thoughts? I'm gonna.
We'll wait a little more for any possible questions, but I wanted to thank our community in general for. I went away for vacation, kind of a working vacation, took a few days off for the White House thing, for about 2 weeks almost, and so I missed a lot of the stuff on community, but I put my head back in, and holy cow, people are sharing amazing stuff about what's going on this summer. I love it. I mean, just seeing the planning behind the scenes, being able to see the whiteboards and the chalkboards and the post-it notes. I'm like blowing up every one of those pictures and looking very closely at your. So, I love that insight into the planning and making process, and I'm so glad that you guys are willing to share it, because everybody's in that project planning mode in a sense. So the more you share over that on the community, the better. But the videos, the blog posts, it's just been beautiful.
Yeah.
And it really makes coming back to the community quite an amazing thing. So I got to devote part of my day doing that. So thank you guys. Good stuff.
All right, let's see if there's any questions on YouTube.
We know that during the summer, most people watch this in a lagged way. So you'll be watching this in the future. Hello, future.
Time travel right there.
I know it. We've achieved that time travel. Yes, thank you. Little technical quirk. Into the future. We're already time shifted to the live thing anyway, so.
Yep. All right, so it looks like there's no questions on YouTube.
That's that's because everything that was said by our guests covered everything as well.
Thank you guys.
The only things we said were good was reiterating what they said. So thank you guys for being the geniuses and the expertise on today's hangout.
All right, well, it's time to.
Yeah. Until the next one.
Yeah.
3 weeks.
Thanks, everyone.
Have a good night.
And if you think of any more icebreakers or mindset issues, please share them on the community.
All right.
All right.
Bye, everyone.
Last visit to everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Free Library Assemble and Progressive Arts Alliance.
Yay. Bye, guys.
Bye.
All right. Bye, guys. Everybody's gone.